Good day. It has been a minute since I've had the privilege of sharing, still looking at Daniel, the wonderful testimony of a man who knew God, was called by God, and was used by God. So, this is my favorite chapter. My favorite chapter is Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6 is in the smack dab middle of the book. It tells really Daniel chapter 1 through 6, all biographical, telling of a prophet who prayed, in summary, a prophet who prayed. But then 7 through 12 are the prophecies in a time of suffering, pain for the people, God's people. And so this is very powerful because in Daniel chapter 6, Daniel is now facing punishment because of the promotion that came from his faithfulness. So here he is, having served multiple kings. Now he's serving under Darius. And serving under Darius, these other leaders come to Darius and say, "Hey, Darius, you are such a good king and you do so well. We ought to set up a system where for a time, the only person that we can pray to is you." This was common in that day. That was not foreign or strange to them. They believed that kings were deified, that kings were not only chosen by God, but they became junior gods, right? So Darius is caught up in this pride, and he accepts their request to be made the one who's prayed to. Unbeknownst to him, this was a trap for Daniel. Once that decree was signed into law, once Darius took his pen and wrote down, "Hey, you can only pray to me," Daniel responded by doing what he always did. Emphasis on always did. What he repeatedly, consistently did. His pattern was prayer. So he went into the same space with the same open window at the same times, 3 times a day, and he prayed. And in praying, that's when they saw him. They wrote it up. They ran to King Darius. "Oh, Darius, look. That Daniel over there, he's praying." And so Daniel was now in trouble. And because what the king signed could not be revoked, Darius had to follow the process to see Daniel thrown into the lion's den. Now think about this. No matter who you are, no matter what experiences you've had, going into a lion's den is a difficult spot. Not just what you see, because it has to be dark in there. There's a little window. They allow for some windows for air or holes, so you can see the sky, things of that nature. But it's a dark place. It's a damp place. And you can smell this harsh scent of flesh and of these lions that have been down there and are down there, namely to eat. So now Daniel's being lowered in. And as he's lowered in, the narrative really stops. It doesn't say what happened to Daniel once he was lowered in. So here's my question. Here's the question that I had to ask with my sanctified imagination, right? Here's my theological theory. What did Daniel do when he was thrown in the lion's den? Now this is helpful because all of us will have seasons or moments in our life when we feel like we're in a tight spot. We're in a lion's den. So what did Daniel do? Prayed about this and thought about this literally for days and even weeks. What did Daniel do in the lion's den? And when you read the book of Daniel, I believe there are holy hints to what Daniel did. Because a pattern is set to show that when there's a missing piece, the pattern lets you put in that missing piece because the pattern is consistent. So what did Daniel do when he could smell these lions? He could hear them breathing. He could see them and their shadows moving in this dark, damp place. He could hear their growl. What did Daniel do? He had the choice to be filled with fear or to be filled with faith. Now, I know this doesn't compare, but recently somebody hit my car. They hit it really hard, man. They messed up my car, and also the doctor said, "You got to have an MRI." I said, "Cool, that's nothing. I mean, the x-ray, I can do that." But I didn't realize that to have an MRI, you had to go in this teeny tiny tube, right? And you put your hands in front of you, you'd lay perfectly still. And for 15 to 20 minutes, there was this machine making all this noise and you couldn't move. The tube covered your whole body and you could not move. It was almost like a tomb or a casket. So I'm sitting in there and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can't move. I can't raise my hand. I can't turn around. I can't do anything. And so at first I began to get worried. I began to get anxious or uncomfortable. But then I decided, since I'm stuck here, I might as well meditate on some things that will calm me and keep me. And so I began to go over the Psalms. My favorite Psalms. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth, or Psalm 91, or Psalm 34, or Psalm 27. I just went over the Psalm after Psalm after Psalm. And the next thing I know, I was being pulled out. It's a machine. I was being pulled out. I had fallen asleep. The woman explained to me, well, we need to look at your arm, so we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to move you slightly different. I said, good, because I was sleeping. And the truth is, for the believer, we always have the choice to fear, to live in fear, to rest in fear, to be in fear, even with good reason. Or we have the choice to be in faith, to believe, to hope, to remember all that God has done. So what did Daniel do? I believe we know with some great certainty that Daniel did what he always did. He went into the lion's den. He looked around, he saw the dangers, he smelt the damp air, he heard the growl of the lion, he saw their movement at the distance and even coming closer. And he decided, I'm going to pray. Because that's what Daniel always did. He prayed. So even now he prayed. I believe he prayed looking up through these small holes and looking up at the sky and thanking the Lord and thinking of how the Lord has been good to him over these 70 plus years. I believe he prayed thinking of what John would write in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, that perfect love casts out all fear. And I believe he prayed saying that God loves me, not with human love, but with perfect love. I believe he prayed looking back over every instance of his life, how God kept him, not just through a lion's den literally, but through political lion dens and emotional lion dens. And all he prayed looking back saying, God has been faithful. I believe he prayed looking forward because God had promised Daniel and the people that they would come out of captivity, and they hadn't come out of captivity. So since God promised they would come out and they hadn't come out, they were still in, and that meant that God's going to take him out of this pit into a promised future. I think we can learn a lot from this. The pattern of prayer is consistent in Daniel's life. And so he prayed through the lion's den. The text goes on to say this, that the king, Darius, could not sleep. And so he had to go to early in the morning. He rushed as soon as the sun rose. He rushed over to this lion's den and cried out, Daniel, Daniel, did the God you serve save you? I believe he woke Daniel up. Darius, the God I serve saved me. The pattern of prayer should be in every believer's life, because that is the promise that sustains us and gives us peace, even when we have to face lion dens.